Presumably, you would welcome, would you, the opportunity for this country to have some stability, particularly fiscal stability, over the next few months?
What we would welcome is for the public to have a say in what should happen in relation to this crisis. You know, we've had how many prime ministers will we have had just in a few weeks, with the public having absolutely no say at all. And 70% of them, according to polling, want to have that say. So why are the Conservatives not letting them? Why are they stitching it up amongst themselves? And why are they so arrogant as to believe that their so-called solutions are the solutions to the mess that they've created in the first place?
But there wasn't
forgive me.
There wasn't a general election when Tony Blair left and Gordon Brown took over.
Well, when Tony Blair stood for election in 2005, I did as well, and I well remember what happened. The Conservatives used to say, oh, vote for Tony Blair and get Gordon Brown, and we used to say, yeah, absolutely. The guys are joined at the hip, and he was Chancellor. Remember the last election in 2019, Rishi Sunak wasn't even on the pitch. Nobody knew anything about him. He was a complete unknown. And since then, so much has happened that the public, and that's really what matters, the public want to have a say. And, you can now, I'm sure you'll tell me, oh, well, we're in the middle of a crisis. We can't afford to have 6 weeks of faffing around with an election. Well, that's how long it took for Liz Truss to come into office, mess up the whole of our economy, and then disappear again. We could have had a general election then.
We all know a general election is highly unlikely in the near future. They will want to sort of capitalise on a little bit of stability and try and make some progress. That leaves you, the opposition, with opportunity to have that time to persuade the public that you are the credible option. How are you going to use this time?
So can I just say one last thing, and I will answer that question. But with Boris Johnson leaving the contest now, they have now lost their very last argument for why it is that they shouldn't have a general election. I mean, I do dispute that we should even just kind of sit back and accept that there shouldn't be an election. People supporting Boris Johnson said he's the only person who we can have because otherwise we need to have a general election because he's the only one with the democratic mandate. Well, for once, I agree with Conservative MPs, and that's about a third of them. So if we don't get a general election, which we should, then obviously our job as the opposition is to make it clear that it doesn't have to be this way. There is an alternative to this, and we have short-term solutions and long-term plans for the economy, which quite frankly have been where we have sat and we have listened to the public and we have learnt from them, and our policies are aligned with what it is that they need. So in the short term, we would have a windfall tax on the energy companies that are making such huge profits at the moment because the prices are so high. We would then use that money to make sure that bills were kept low. The government at the moment has got a policy where they're going to keep the bills low for a bit, but they're not going to take any of the money away from the energy companies that are making so much money. Remember, these are energy companies where the chief executives say that the current crisis is like a cash machine for them, and so we would have proper taxes. We would make sure that that was supporting the public, and then there wouldn't be the billions of pounds additional borrowing that this government are pushing us into. We would have long-term plans for the future. We would make sure that we were investing in Great British Energy. We would make sure that we were moving towards clean power so that we weren't subject to the whims of someone like Putin. We would be able to stand on our own 2 feet. We would have new jobs. We would be able to keep bills low, and the profits that were made would be able to go back into British pockets.
Well, look, it's a good outline, sounds very good on the surface, and I know it's unusual, but we're going to have Labour as an opposition, aren't we? If you're going to be constantly pushing for a general election, we're going to have to start seeing the detail of all that. We're going to have to start seeing the small print of all that sometime soon, aren't we? So at least should there be a snap election, we know what you're offering.
Well, I think that what we should be doing is we should be showing the direction of travel. We should be showing, you know, what our principles are, how we would do this, how we would make sure that we prioritised sound money, looking after the public finances, being a reliable alternative, being a government that people could believe in. You know, these are really important principles that we would make sure that we put into practice. But when it comes to the fine detail, it's quite difficult for us at the moment because, quite frankly, you know, the Office for Budget Responsibility, who is an independent body that's supposed to audit, supposed to look at what the state of our economy is, hasn't been allowed to publish anything. You know, we won't know until next week just how bad things are. And when we know how bad things are, then it will be easier for us to be able to give more detailed plans. But at the moment, can I just put this on its head? You know, we don't have the OBR forecast. We haven't done for weeks, despite all of this terrible crisis. We don't know how bad it is. And today, you also have potentially the Prime Minister being not elected, right? Not elected by MPs or even by their members, let alone by the country, just simply swanning into office, and he isn't even doing a media round as I am in order to make sure that it is clear to people what it is that he stands for or what it is that he's going to do to this country. So, I mean, with respect, I would say, of course the opposition are under a duty to give you some detail, but you should be, you know, demanding to hear from what is the putative Prime Minister as to what it is that he's going to do.
Well, not yet Prime Minister, and he did go through 6 gruelling weeks of laying out to the public and the party membership what his plans were.
Changed since
so
then.
we've got an idea of what Rishi Sunak wants to do with the economy.
That he put forward 6 weeks ago.
Which bits of Rishi Sunak's plan do you think aren't a good strategy?
No, don't even ask me that. I don't even know what Rishi Sunak's plan is. You know, he may have been saying things in the summer, but frankly, he changed them as the summer went on. He started off with quite strong accusations against Liz Truss, but by the end of the summer, he was putting forward all of his ideas when it comes to cutting taxes. And then since then, we've had this kamikaze budget, and the markets have crashed, and they've crashed our economy. I don't know what Rishi Sunak is going to do to get us out of that mess, and yet by the end of the day, he's going to be Prime Minister. I mean, what kind of democracy are we living in?
Well, I'll tell you what, Emily Thornberry, if we could strong-arm Rishi Sunak onto the programme, we would absolutely love to do so, but he hasn't put himself forward.
Well, work on it. That's
well,
all
we'll
I'm
work
saying.
on it.
Just work on it.
We're very glad you're doing the rounds this morning. Good to talk to you. Thank you.